What does the comments here have to say? Okay, the story needs huge improvement, but the rest of the criticism means no shit. It doesn't hold a candle to whatever you think it is. Combat need dodge and its mechanics that could be sold or expanded upon. If you think otherwise, you're not part of the real ARPG fans, just the bloated, self-centric egomaniac that wants it to be different than the others. Nothing wrong with it different, really, but to show it to the general public, mocking the thing there. You hope you stay away from the game if you still AoE taunting these new gacha players. People like you are not helping it. Okay. Fair enough. Like making building available in areas of, in the boss area of, eligible area and combat, made the combat more interesting. Base building, but Final Fantasy would be epic, blah blah blah, but no, your narcissistic ego maniac gotta fill the other lame generic gotcha game to fill your ego stuff. Okay, what is this? Apparently this comment got pinned, by this guy, the guy who created the video. Alright, this game should not be an ARPG and should not make for a ARPG fan. Known for its depth and strategy. It should have been a strategy-based RPG, what they're good at. Okay. Oh boy, let's see what all this stuff is here. Roaming around and dodging AoE, while thinking your next step is, feels so nice. Not like turn-based strategy game like FF7, 8, 10, or HSR where we're stuck in place. You prefer others' FF story, but you like 12 gameplay. Okay, Endfield is a special game. Love OG ARKNIGHTS in your heart, considering best gacha ever second to Star Rail. Oh boy. You spend on these ones, made you more interested about ARKNIGHTS Endfield, building aspect. They should expand upon things that you want to build unique base building, and stop being Genshin and WoA. They're popular, but not because of jumping and dodging, combat exploration, characters, and how much, yeah, no, whatever. Alright then, you really don't want Enfield to be like Genshin, same. I don't want it either. WoA is proof that a game like Genshin can still excel if done right. No, it's not. Stop coping, man. Yeah, why do I want to... Exactly, like, why do you want a game like Genshin? Just play Genshin, then. It's not that much different from Genshin, their fandom especially. Exactly. Right? It's like, nah. If I don't, like, if you don't like one thing, why would I like something else that's literally the same thing? Just from a different company? The answer would be no. I wouldn't want it. Alright, let's see this video then. I don't know who this guy is, but this was sent to me. Like, we can save as well this thing for tomorrow or something. It's been sitting there for a couple of days, but we can save it. We can look at the comments there later as well. We'll do that for tomorrow. We'll just look at this one before we end off. Because we've been live for, what, 6 hours as well anyways.
Much can be said with certainty about ARKNIGHTS Endfield after its beta test. It's got huge potential, it's going to be very popular.
Yep.
And this NPC is really sorry.
Really sorry, really sorry, really
Yep.
sorry, really sorry.
Having played the full duration of the beta, I can confidently say that ARKNIGHTS Endfield has the potential to define a whole new generation of gacha games.
Yep.
That is not an exaggeration.
Okay.
I really must emphasize the word potential.
Yeah.
Because right now, I am increasingly worried that potential may never end up being realized. That very same potential could also turn the game into the biggest disappointment I've ever experienced in all my years of playing games.
Okay. I wouldn't say biggest
Honestly, though,
disappointment,
I really need to get
yeah.
the glazing out of my system, so let's just get that out of the way, shall we? There is so much that I fucking love about Endfield. Literally, from the moment you open the game, it hits you with the
ARKNIGHTS.
God, it's so good. Harking back to its roots, announcing itself to the world before
Okay.
greeting you with peak music just for the login screen. The satisfaction of seeing all the sprawling factory belts come together, customizing map traversal with zip lines, the activity in the Dijang with your operators working and saying hello.
You're here, Administrator. How's your day?
The view of Talos 2 from the Nexus, the phenomenal sound design.
Yep.
Karmic justice.
Okay.
The eerie environment and music of Valley 4.
Yeah, it does look quite good with everything there.
The gorgeous environment and music of Jinlong.
Glazing to cover bad takes. Yeah, let's see. Okay. I don't know. I don't know what's to come. You guys
And
sent
the
me this.
headhunting. Oh my good lord, the headhunting. The music on the banner screen gets you all excited as if you're preparing for a rocket launch. You click the button, you hear those distant scintillations, and then...
Okay.
By far the best summoning experience in any gacha game I've ever played. Not even close.
Okay.
Oh, right, good. Got that out of my system. I have been fortunate enough to play both the alpha and beta of Endfield. In its alpha state, I was hooked. I was full of optimism and I was wholly convinced that it would be my favorite game of all time. So what changed in the beta?
Alright,
Thankfully, not the base. It's even better than before, and it has a ton of room to grow and become much deeper.
Yeah, the base building stuff is pretty
even though
cool.
the base has a very obvious target audience, with the nature of it being a gacha game, there will inevitably be those who are simply addicted to account progression as gameplay, and will play games they would otherwise have zero interest in just to feed that addiction. For those players, rather than simplify the gameplay, which would only annoy its fans and still wouldn't be good enough for the gacha addicts, they instead created these wacky inflatable tube guys, which you then have to murder in cold blood.
Yep. These guys, yeah,
Which
I
unlocks a
remember.
bunch of tutorials for it. They are quite possibly the most needlessly hand-holding tutorials I've ever had to do.
They are
but I
very
don't mind their
hand-holding, yeah.
existence at all if it means they can keep cooking and make it deeper, more complex, and even more fun and satisfying in the future. And for those who are hoping for just another account progression dopamine machine, who lament the mere thought of meaningfully engaging with the base at all, fear not, there is actually an easy solution. Don't play it.
Yep.
Unfortunately, though,
That's a good one. Don't play it. That's the solution. Nice. No, he's supposed to show it. I literally played it on stream too. There's nothing wrong with that.
In spite of everything I've mentioned so far, Enfield has made what I feel are very significant mistakes.
Okay.
Pretty much all of them are fixable. These are far from permanent. But in general, beta tests tend to look pretty similar to their full release versions. So let's dive in.
Yep.
The main story is, to put it bluntly, bad. There's no nuance at all. Landbreakers are completely one-dimensional and uninteresting, just generic bad guys who want you dead.
Yep.
Compare them to Reunion from the ARKNIGHTS main story.
I don't know about
ARKNIGHTS
story, no.
goal as Rhodes Island, that being to liberate the infected, but with very different methods. There is a clear conflict. I understand the
Yeah, it's classic gotcha story, and gotcha stories are generally shit. I've already made my piece on a lot of that before. Some are more shit than others, but they're generally not on the great end of things. They're generally on the bad end. But they're not on like the good kind of bad where it's so bad that it becomes entertaining because you want to see just how worse it gets. They're just bad.
Of the antagonists and how they ended up where they are. Landbreakers have none of this. We also know almost nothing about the aims or motivations of the main villain Neferith, who might just be one of the most toothless.
Yeah, like they don't really have enough of the emotions and stuff. And then the problem as well is just the voice acting is not good. You remember, the voice acting in a lot of these are just bad. They don't really... It makes it a lot harder to really get immersed in everything with it. Yeah, it's just beyond whatever, I guess. No, but like, the voice acting too in these is just like... They, like, a lot of them just sound like they're brain dead or they have some other thing going on. Or they're just reading the fucking lines on the teleprompter. And not actually acting. In a lot of cases. The few times you actually see them actually doing any acting. Those are outliers.
Villains I have ever seen. with the sole exception of one line when you first meet.
Yeah, they hired their own crew, voice acted the beta version. No, they didn't. They hired someone else, but like, there's no voice direction at all. There's like no voice direction. It's all over the place. But like, it's not just exclusive to this one. It's just you see it as a whole across all of these gachas, to varying levels of Pepega.
She shows up from time to time,
Some are
says
worse
some
than
vague
others,
bullshit and fucks
but
off
yeah.
again. How on earth can this be written by Hypergriff, the same people who gave us Patriot and Tallulah? They can very reasonably fix all of these issues before the game's release, but the alpha story wasn't good either, so I'm not convinced
Yeah.
they will. I have no issue with the notion of a simple story well told, but that does not describe Enfield's story at all.
Yeah,
And
I
it's
don't
not
know
just
what the hell
writers
was
who are
going
at
on in
fault.
the story.
At one point, Chen refers to Neferith as Nephi, which I found extremely weird. Why is she giving the main villain a friendly nickname?
Yep.
Turns out this is because in every single language except English, Chen says essentially the equivalent of Nefer something or Nefer whatever, because the name went over her head. It's a subtle way of adding to her characterization. Instead, the English translators collectively hotboxed their entire office and decided Chen is actually giving her the kind of cute nickname you'd normally give to close friends.
Yeah. This is the problem with a lot of the English translations, and these are the worst. Where now it just changed it to like she gave it a cute nickname, but it's supposed to be a big bad villain that you end up fighting at the end. They don't. Yeah. It's just funny, man.
I am astounded at how incompetent this is, but then again, these are the same translators who translated cold to cryo, for no reason in particular.
Yeah, why just do that? Then again, they put
I'm sure.
no reason, I'm sure. And then they did that for literally every single element.
Most of the dialogue is also exasperating.
You should feel lucky, because I am the only one who can take care of technical problems like this. Say no more.
like, this is a perfect example of how bad the voice acting was. It's a perfect example. It's like, why?
Stop moving already and do something about that ether side rupture before it.
Like, what? And this is the entirety of the story is like this. It's either they sound like this, or they sound like they're falling asleep, or they sound like they're completely brain dead. It's like, pick your poison. I don't know, man. I don't know. But this one's not crashing out. This is like, yup, this is like a problem, but at this point, we see these in like literally all of these gachas, man. Yeah, they interact with the object, have a conversation, standing an idle pose. I know. Mr. Dookie lost the plot when he said, with HSR saying hating Hoya is, the meta. Oh boy. I mean, they're all doing the weird freaking drama farming shit, man.
It gets any worse.
Guys, writers, please! Is it too much to ask not to be treated like an idiot? Who could your target audience possibly be for this dialogue such that you feel the need to explicitly state the obvious multiple times and make sure everything is repeated very slowly for clarity? Oh, motherfucker! Consistent with the emerging trend of disappointing writing, frustratingly, are the characters. Not because their writing is bad per se, but because there's just so much wasted potential. For example, Ember is a Sancta and Shahi is a Sarkaz. We know from the Arknights story that the Sancta and the Sarkaz are seemingly always in conflict with each other due to what the Sarkaz see as the Sancta's betrayal. An image of a Sarkaz and a Sancta holding hands was very prominent in Arknights' fourth concept trailer as a holy shit moment because its meaning was so significant. Meanwhile, the only mention of something even slightly resembling a connection to this lore is one line in Ember's file saying, "The children born and raised in Talos II would never learn that angels and sanctum used to carry beautiful meanings in times past." If I'm interpreting this correctly, this is the writer's way of saying that the entire history of Terra, all the extraordinary, catastrophic, mountain-moving events that directly led to Terran races ending up on Talos II, not important. None of it matters anymore.
Okay.
I am so disappointed in the writers. What a monumental waste of such an incredible wealth of lore at your disposal.
And then they
All that being
ruin
said,
it.
though, I must admit, I do love the fact the resident Australian, Aviwena, says verbatim, "Bird and beast piss? How does it taste like? Crikey fucking bloody oath,
What?
you piss drinking cunt." Despite
What?
nearly all the writing being a massive letdown, I want to make it explicitly clear the voice actors, thankfully, are actually good at their job and have done marvelous work with the material they've been given. I'm a huge fan of Aviwena, Dapan, and Wolfguard's regional accents.
Oh, of course. You're the boss.
You point the way.
I don't think they're great because like I'm not gonna look at regional accents that way. The other voices though, ooh, they're painful.
Not a problem. Leave it to me.
And on top of that,
Just because some of them have regional accents doesn't mean it's good. At least that's how I look at it. Especially if they're like lacking the emotion and feeling into it, and it's just like they're reading lines or whatever. It just doesn't.
the animations are way more expressive, the models are outstanding, and their idle chatter adds a ton of
Idealism is always detached from reality, and it's the first step towards disappointment.
Yep. Yeah, like they have a fit theme for regional accents, that's fine. It's just you gotta like actually do something with it and not just have them speak as if they're just reading lines in that regional accent. And that's kind of the problem with the voice acting, because that's basically all that happens, right? And like we saw the same thing, when we played the Wua 2.0 like 2 months ago, right? Where like we would go to the thing there, and they would have like their weird fake Italian accent, but there was like no feeling or emotion or weight behind anything that was said, and it was just them reading lines as they try to fake an accent. So like the impact of literally anything there is just completely lost. Yeah, Wua 1.0 had all British accent. Wua 2.0, they have like they're trying to force them to do a fake Italian accent, but there's like completely no like no expression or like feeling or emotions tied to anything. Where like there's like a part where like they're talking about like having a celebration or anything, but it doesn't feel like they're celebrating anything when they're talking about it. I remember at like the end of it, I'm like, what? I remember just laughing at it in there. Because like it's completely lacking that. There's no emotion or feeling or anything into it. They're not acting, they're just reading lines. Right? There's no acting. The acting is not there. They're lacking the expression in the voice. Right? It's cool that sure they can do the accent or they can fake these accents, but you need to do a lot more than that to actually have an actual good voice acting dub there. There's a reason why people like to poke fun at dubs in different languages for things. There's a reason why. Just because you can fake an accent or something doesn't mean you did a good job. Yeah, like can you imagine like an idle animation in real life? Are you okay? Do you need a doctor? True. You need a doctor? Are you okay? Should I call an ambulance? Right? Do I need to put you on a stretcher? You know, is your spine okay? Do you need a stretcher?
Thank you, Wolfguard. Also, just one more thing. I am no prude. I am a straight man who plays gacha games. I'm not gonna pretend not to like fan service.
Okay.
But guys, holy fuck, relax. Subtlety is dead. Humanity is cooked. Have mercy on my soul. Guide me from the wayward woman, Lord Jesus.
I didn't even
as
know
I said
that.
before,
I didn't
everything
even
I have
notice
mentioned
that.
so far is fixable.
Like, I didn't even notice that when I was playing it. That she would just show her a thing out like that. Probably because I wasn't even looking there. I don't know, man. You're just looking at her ass. I didn't even notice, man. I spent over 100 hours playing Endfield and stuff, and I didn't even notice that was the pose. Because I wasn't paying attention, man. If I had like an eye tracker on me when I was looking at the game, it's like my eyes would be like looking at the UI elements and not that. I didn't even notice. I didn't even notice that I spent over 100 hours playing it. I didn't even like pay attention to the tail outside of the time I pointed it out when we first saw the character there. It's like, oh, she has big tail. That's how you know she's a 5-star and not a 4-star like Chen, because her tail is so much bigger. That was like the joke I made. Yeah, like, how are these Chinese companies so good at making 3D models? Yeah, first happened with Genshin Tofu at ZZZ Endfield. They keep pumping them out. They've been making them just as great for longer, man. It's just that this is when you start thinking about them, because this is when, like, people start talking about their games.
Bad writers can be replaced and characters can be given good writing later on, which is why
Yeah.
all of this is negligible compared to the #1 issue I have with ARKNIGHTS Endfield in its beta state, because it is not fixable once it is released. In order to get there, we first need to talk about combat.
Oh boy.
Combat in Endfield for the most part revolves around skills and skill points. Use a shared SP bar to trigger a battle skill, which in theory triggers a combo skill, which triggers even more of them, and so on. Combo skills are essentially just QTEs with extra steps that deal damage. You press E when the prompt shows up and it gets the neurons going. Basic attack strings essentially serve as the cost of getting a final strike, which is the last hit in the sequence. Final strikes restore SP, so for the most part you really want to be getting the full sequence of basic attacks to that end. That logic generally applies to the combat as a whole. Given the importance of skills, you want to be maximizing SP restoration, hence the prevalence of Arclight in nearly every team composition. Her individual damage may not be anything noteworthy, but her ability to generate SP is excellent, and more SP means more damage. I'm honestly kind of surprised she isn't a 6-star. Now, the beta also adds the ability to dodge. Due to the nature of final strikes being your primary way of restoring SP, you need to commit to the full sequence of basic attacks to get it, which means currently there is still very much a choice every time an enemy attacks you of either dodging or taking the hit, and the dodge is often not the best move. But it still gives me cause for concern. Future 6-stars are inevitably going to be designed to take advantage of more and more gameplay mechanics. Right now, the dodge only exists as a means of survival rather than facilitating damage. But if a dodge exists in any capacity, there is a very real danger of them leaning much further into it by, say, having a 6-star with a combo skill triggered by a dodge, and then more units with kits centered around dodging who synergize with that 6-star, and a new 6-star whose basic attacks don't get interrupted by the dodge, and before long you'll end up with a player base wanting more and more action, understandably seeking to flex their ADHD action gamer reflexes as their expression of skill. But with Enfield's base building being the way it is, and with the fact that they didn't dumb down the actual substance of the base building at all since the alpha,
they only increased the actual complexity of the base building further. Well, why is he assuming it? Because it's not unreasonable to expect that. You see, the thing is, these types of things just happen in all sorts of gotchas as a whole. Where, like, they have one specific gimmick or mechanic in there, right? It's because he's probably seen this problem play out in other games. And then they make something entirely, completely centric around that specific interaction, right? We've even had that stuff in TOF too, remember? We had stuff like Cobalt. What did Cobalt do? She put burn on target. And then what happened with Flame after that? They make Ruby, who detonates burn but can't do it on her own, outside of 1000 weapon charge, which any other flame weapon could do at the time, right? And then what happened after that? They gave Annabella burn, Ruby detonate burn, right? But then they also had the other mode where you could use the gas ammo on Annabella. What happened next, right? Land Umbrella so she could use the ammo faster. Also, Land Umbrella counts as summons. Okay, what happened next there? We got Levo there, who also creates more summons, and also has the thing to detonate burn, and has ammo. Okay, now what happened next? They got Fesa, who copies the largest burn value, which you can also detonate with Levo. She also increases her burn value based on the amount of summons you have. You see where I'm going with this? You have stuff like that there. So, like, it makes the things a lot more restrictive. Because, like, then, like, they're forcing more things to be built up on that. And there's, like, less flexibility there. And that's, like, the downside there. But, like, we also just went through that reaction to, like, that HSR video where they talked about other things in there too, right? You know, but yeah, hi there, Mr. Chicken. Right, we're just doing reacts and stuff like that. But yeah, like you have that in that game, and then in a different game again, you know, it's like it happens in a lot of these. So it's not the most unfair assumption for this guy to be making. That, yeah, it's like, we gotta be cautious on that part. Right? As long as they don't make the combat stuff in Endfield that important so people can just keep doing the factory stuff, which is what the reality of, like, what most people are there for, I think it can be fine, but it really depends on how they handle things long term. Right? Because, like, the reality is, at the same time, if they do that, you also take away parts of the game, too. Right? Because the current state, like, of when I played Enfield, the combat was basically build skill points, and you stockpile them to use your abilities in combinations, for each of the characters, right? And the idea is you would be able to counter enemies' attacks and stuff by using a skill at the right time. So it was a lot more reactionary, and there were different elemental combos, that you could do to trigger extra effects. And that was kind of how the gameplay dynamic worked there. It was very reactionary to that. And that was fine. But yeah, you're lying if Hypergraph doesn't want to advertise themselves to the Hoyo and Wuwa crowd. Exactly, and that's gonna be its own mess there, though. Like, the reality is, what I liked about this one was it wasn't the fucking, Genshin and Wuwa garbage. I didn't want to play that stuff, right? That wasn't, why there. I did enjoy the beta when I played it. But, like, yeah, I understand why this guy's skeptical on that point. Right, I do understand why. Because, like, when you really think about it, yeah. They will get overwhelmed by the factory stuff. Exactly. They're not going to be playing this shit, man. Actually having to use your brain and planning stuff out is too much work for them. They want their mindless, go grab your credit card and swipe for more power, to farm trash mobs in a stupid circle in a timer. Why else would they freaking praise the crap in, especially with what praise the crap they're getting? Why else would they? They were also, like, attacking each other when they both have the exact same core issues. But that's, like, its own other problem there. But yeah, like, having them, like, deal with, like, the actual construction stuff and dealing with things in the world, that's too much for them. They're probably not gonna give a fuck about that. But that's the best part about Enfield. And that's, like, the main draw for the people who actually played it that liked it was. It was that, not really the combat part. The combat was fine for what it is, but, like, the real draw was the factory stuff.
The team had was clearly aimed at the kind of player who likes to obsess over details, who may not necessarily want something based on reflexes, but instead something more strategic, controlled and precise. The base obviously appeals to this.
And that's the other thing too, the combat here was more of, like, you have to, like, it was more reactionary and, like, countering stuff that was going on, and not just mindlessly doing your set button rotation.
Kind of player, while the combat has ended up with a sort of identity crisis. Unsure of what it really wants to look like, trying to be a bit of everything while never actually excelling at any of them.
Yep.
Most of the strategy comes from the team comps rather than the execution. The actual process of triggering combos and doing damage and so on, while satisfying for a while, is very easy. Use a battle skill or two, do your basic attack string, face tank smaller hits, use combo skills on cooldown, and repeat. I quickly exhausted every single possibility for improvement, and even self-limiting clears like duos and solos are not at all challenging.
I mean, like, I didn't even care about doing
I dive more
those.
often to platforming than to enemies.
Yep.
This is mostly due to the current cast of enemies lacking any real variety or complexity. Sure, it will improve with time, but the state of the game at launch has real implications for the future of the game. Hypergriff has been through these motions before. Today, more than 5 years after its launch, ARKNIGHTS is known.
Yeah, exactly. I'm tired of them too, man. I am tired of them too. It's even more annoying when they add an open world to it and add extra gauges. Right? Can you imagine dealing with all that, but then you also have to worry about, oh, if I want to do the swap and repeat, I also have to fill up their stupid gauge there so they can trigger another effect, or I have to fill up their energy so they can use their E and their Q, and it's like a different one for each of them. It just completely slows down and kills the pacing. And then if you exit combat, you have to start over from scratch the next time you enter combat. But then, like, you're not even locked in an instanced area, and you're actually doing it in open world. When I see that type of stuff in some of these games, I will just completely avoid the combat entirely if that's the experience I'm stuck dealing with, because I would rather not go into combat and not deal with those problems than go into combat for whatever reason. So I end up playing things completely different when I'm just running away from everything. Right? And that was kind of like how my experience with WoW ended up turning down, right? I would basically not want to get into combat with literally anything, and I would want to avoid anything. I even made like remarks about wanting to like set the world level all the way back down to like 0 or 1, to like the default state. So the few times I did get into combat, I could immediately just one-shot something without paying attention, just so I could avoid it even more. Because it just got really annoying and tedious. But yeah, when it makes the game hard, like the super bosses, they either make the AI OP or they will get wiped because you have no control over it. Yeah, that's its own other mess there. I think the tower defense stuff is interesting, at least, where like you build your towers and stuff and you defend a specific spot. But that was only like a very, very minor part of the beta. I don't know what will happen if they ever expand on that one, because like the thing that people really want is the stuff around the factory and the base building. Like the reality is, like, again, with some of the stuff I ended up farming in the overworld, I would, if I was just gonna do this stuff constantly, I would just put a bunch of towers there and build power lines to power my towers. I wasn't gonna just go fight all of them manually. On my own. I would just have the towers do most of the work, and I would just attack as filler in between, right? And then, cause like I really just want to do the building stuff. The end game content one, there really isn't any. Here's the thing though with these single player games, man. I don't really care much about Endfield, not Endfield, end game content in these games, especially with these single player ones. Because at the end of the day, a lot of them just boil down to, you buy more power anyways. They'll tend to favor whoever is like the most recent units or whatever, right? And then the reality is to go and clear them. Like when you go and clear them, the amount of stuff you get is significantly less than the amount that you put in so you could attempt to clear them in some cases, right? It's part of why pulling from meta in a lot of these games is stupid, because the reality is you go into your endgame content, let's say they give you 700 premium currency and a character pulls 160 premium currency, right? And that's per cycle, right? Let's say they rotate it monthly for that specific endgame mode, right? Well, how many years is it going to take for you to get your investment back for that one specific character you pulled for, when you also have other characters that you have to pull for to account for, and the fact that maybe it took you like 160 pulls to even get the character in the first place. By the time you put all that together, you're looking at maybe it takes you like 20, 30 years of constantly doing that mode, as if you're going to be doing that for 20 to 30 years straight. It's dumb, right? I don't really care about endgame in these games. What I care about is the actual game with a lot of these single player games. Because the reality is, if they want to make good, fulfilling, and interesting endgame content in these games, they would have to completely undermine and ignore and bypass the monetization systems in these games, right? But a lot of these game companies, they don't want to do that, right? Or if they do, one of the ways they could do it is if they want to make difficult stuff later on, not resetting the mode, so that you can always come back and clear it later, or you make stuff around content dealing around mechanics instead, so the game is actually difficult, but you cannot just throw money at the problem either, because they basically made that irrelevant, right? And that's kind of where like ToF is, right? With ToF, you got the variable difficulty scaling with how you can treat things with all the buff stacking for Void Abyss, or you have the difficulties throughout a season drastically being reduced for each Origin of War season. And then with raids, the event raids basically being an entire mechanics fest, right? Where it's like you and the 7 other people you're playing with are all coordinated to go and handle the stuff in there. Where, like, actually doing damage in there doesn't matter. Unless it's, like, to hit specific quotas in there that are very, very easy to handle. Right? They basically had to undermine and get around a lot of the monetization systems to make it, like, actually interesting and worth doing and an actual skill check. Because the rest of these other gotchas, the reality is, you know, like, with holograms, what can you do? You can swipe that credit card. You can get more copies of a character to get significantly more power. You can get more copies of the weapon to do the same. You don't have enough echoes for, like, the good stats and stuff like that? No worries. You can go swipe and get more wave plates, so then you can go waste more hours of your life farming the terrible echo stuff and upgrading that, so that you can have better gear, potentially, because you went at more chances of the slot machine. Right? It's like you're just buying power. It's like whatever. Right? All of that stuff, all the difficulty in there is just completely artificial anyways. It doesn't matter. Right? And then, yeah, for some people, yeah, you find it hard to play when you're not a day one player because you miss out on all of those initial resources that you probably won't get later on. And that is also completely understandable. Yeah, and all of that for a single player game. And even worse, when that's the only thing you do in the game, you basically spend 99% of the time you're logged in just farming a bunch of trash mobs and materials just so you can maybe do 5 minutes of content. Right? Like, you would, like, log in. It's like, let's say you log into, like, let's say, Genshin or Wuthering Waves for, like, 15, 20 minutes a day to do your dailies and spend your wave plates or resin, right? 15 to 20 minutes of your life every single day, right? How much is that in a month? Right? How much of that? Or, like, let's say in a patch cycle and all you wanted to do is do the hologram boss. Right? Like in WUWA, for example. That's the only content you actually cared about. Right? You had all this other crap in there. You don't actually care. You're just doing it because of the resources. And you're really desperate for that. Right? Let's say you get like 10 minutes of content. But, you know, like 10 minutes of content. But you're logging in, spending like 20 minutes a day. Right? For like, what? 7 weeks is a patch, right? So, like, you have this many minutes, and then each patch you have, like, the other endgame modes, which you're doing because you need the premium currency or whatever, so you can keep pulling whatever. Let's say you spend another, per reset, let's say you spend another 2 hours on that one. So, plus another 120, right? And let's say you don't even care for the story, you want to skip through it all, but, like, going through that's, like, another 5-10 hours of just spamming through dialogue to walk from point A to point B. Right, let's be nice and say 5 hours. It's even worse if I said 10. So that's another 300 minutes. Right? So it's oh wait, where was that? Then we add that to the 1100 from earlier, right? So, like, you spent 15-20 minutes in a patch. Divide that by 60. 60 minutes in an hour, that's like, that's 25 hours of your life just gone. You'll never get that back. And also do 10 minutes of content. Keep that in mind though. Let's say we multiply the 60 back in there, and you were only doing it for 10 minutes of content, so we'll add the 10 minutes here, right? How much of this content though was spent doing shit you don't give a fuck about, but you're forced to do it anyways? Well, that's divide that by 1520. And, wait, that's the wrong way. 1520 over 1530 in this case. Right? 99% of your playtime isn't even you playing the game then. It's you doing a bunch of mindless chores and grinding. Not even 1% of your time spent in the game is you doing what you wanted. In this case. And this is assuming just one patch, one game version patch. And that's the problem too, it becomes really boring and monotonous. That's why in a lot of these games, especially the single player ones, if I'm playing them, I want to be playing them for another reason than just that. And the end game content does not matter. Because the reality is they're never going to make good end game content. Because good end game content goes entirely against their entire monetization model. It will never work. It will never work. You'll never get what you want. No matter what you think, it's never gonna happen. And the funny thing is, the HOYOSHILLS praise dodge counter. Guess what? Don't they have new characters that just get around that anyways? Right? Don't they have that Brett guy that, like, is in the air with his, like, animation a lot of the time? And now they don't even care about parrying and stuff like that in a lot of situations. Like they're already, like, undermining some of the old mechanics and stuff in there. Because they were already pretty terrible in the first place, but yeah. They're praising it for all that, man. But yeah. And the freeze enemies and stuff like that, so they don't need dodge or counter. That too. They have stuff like that too. It's like, it doesn't matter. Right? There is no actual skill there, yeah. Jinchi can already do that? Okay. I don't know, I never played Jinchi or whatever. But like, yeah. It's like, when you really think about it, with how some of these games work, you're never actually going to scratch that itch. For a while, you can at least trick them into thinking they're doing something, but that's not gonna last for a while. And that's not gonna last for that much longer. And the only way for that content to truly work and be meaningful is if they took away aspects of the game that they put in there to be like friction points. And put something else in its place. And like, here's the thing as well with Wuwa, for example. If you only played Wuthering Waves for the hologram content, reality is that you don't care about anything else in there. Let's say Duet Night Abyss comes out. Just farming the bosses in that game will give you a way better experience. And it will scratch that itch that you would have had there. Because of how the stuff in Duet Night Abyss works. Especially when you can just, like, farm and grind for stuff endlessly if you really wanted to. And on the boss that you're trying to beat, no less. You can do that there. Instead of just only buying power to go and clear it, because you can just craft the items if you get the recipe. You can literally just craft the best weapons in the game as long as you get the recipe for that. So it's not really buying power anymore. Well, like, buying power is just a speed up ticket, I guess. At least you can, like, play it for that reason. And the game will let you actually just play it for that. That said, that game had other issues it needs to fix as well. I'll eventually get my review on that one. But at least it's more of, it's just missing stuff to do rather than not being good. Right, it's more like, it's just very barren. But yeah. Holograms and only content that isn't Hoyo coded, and then they never experiment on it further. No co-op mode or boss rush mode. Here's the thing, man. Do you want co-op in Wuwa? Do you actually want it? Right? Genshin's co-op was already pretty bad. And then Wuwa's just makes it even worse. Unless they rework how, like, multiplayer stuff works in that game, do you honestly want an actual multiplayer mode? Because the game is not built around it either. There's nothing in the game built around it and to, like, support having multiple characters and multiple people playing together. The game is not suited for that. To, like, actually make multiplayer stuff work in a lot of these games, you would have to, like, intentionally build and design stuff around having multiple things interact with each other. Like, Endfield could probably use can actually make use of a co-op mode, because you have things like aggro and taunting stuff, mechanics, like, hidden in the game, and being able to manage that stuff with enemies. And, like, who they're targeting there, especially because you have all the characters out and about at the same time. So you can have that type of gameplay dynamic on top of everything, and it's a lot more reactionary, but yeah. They also have to make it worthwhile, too, whether it's fun or for rewards. The problem is with the rewards is, like, depending on your situation, they're never going to be worth it. Because if you're only in there for, like, premium currency, it's like, if you're going to be wasting an insane amount of time to get shit amounts of premium currency, why bother doing that when it's more efficient for you to just like go flip burgers for an hour and then swipe instead. With the money you got for flipping burgers for an hour. You're going to get way more out of that when you think about it, right? If you're gonna like waste an hour of your time, and if you're only after rewards. And that's kind of the problem with a lot of these games as well. It's the content in them. They're basically having to bribe you for premium currency, rather than because of the content itself, right? Because the reality is the content in them are not good. Like they're just not good, right? It's just not. And like you end up in the situation where people are doing it because they see premium currency as the thing there. That's their carrot on a stick. And like honestly, if it was up to me, I would basically tell the people making these games to remove all premium currency from those game modes entirely. Put them elsewhere if they want. Just do not have them in those game modes. They should not be the reason why you go and do them. Because if you force it to be that way, it's only going to make players dislike it more over time, especially when they start to view it more and more of as a regular chore that's tedious and annoying to deal with, rather than, oh, cool, fun new content to do. And that's the problem too with Endgame in these games. Endgame is not that important at all. It's nowhere near as important as people will make you think it is. It's not. And like, if you look at how a lot of people who play these things a lot more casually do it, they completely ignore the fact that it exists in the first place. Because the reality is the content is shit. No matter what, it's like, it's just shit. And it's never going to be good. Yeah, like, you don't pull for anything, man. Right? And it's also why, like, if you don't do that, now you don't have any incentive to go pull for characters for power. Right? And so then you have people that won't do that either. Right? The ones that actually think that way. But you still do because you like the characters. Yeah. That's why I've also said, like, if you're gonna pull, right, you like the thing there. Great. Go. Good. Go have fun with that. Because at the end of the day, it's like, if you don't like what you're doing in there, you're not gonna like it no matter what. So you're better off just not doing it in the first place. Right? Like, there is no reward, the reward incentive for it is just never going to pay off. Right? Who cares about getting, like, 700 gems or whatever it's called when it costs you like 25,000, 30,000 gems or something to pull that one character, and you needed to use other characters with it. So the reality is, let's say you had to use 9 characters in total to do that content. Well, your 700 is now divided by 9 in terms of how much you got back, because you still have to account for the value of the other 8 characters you were using. Right? And you can apply that to literally any other gacha. It's all the same. It's why endgame content really doesn't matter as much as people think it is. And the only way for, like, them to make stuff meaningful is if they actually undermine all of that. And especially once you start to look at them as chores. But yeah. And the cost of not playing the characters and you're fine with. Exactly. Because here's the thing. Oh, you can't clear the content. Oh, don't worry, you weren't going to do the content in the first place. So now you don't even have to waste the pulls to get a character to clear it if you weren't going to do it in the first place. Especially if the rewards are just never going to be worth it. It's why premium currency is a terrible incentive. Right, and it's like, I would rather these games not even have an endgame at all. I would rather them just focus on the actual core game itself. The endgame doesn't matter. Unless they're okay with willing to undermine all of those aspects of their monetization and make something else around that, I don't care about endgame in these games. Yeah, and that too, you also gotta burn stamina for the other 9 characters. Exactly. You gotta go do it to go upgrade and level them up. You gotta get them for their ascension materials. You probably gotta go get a weapon for them and upgrade that. You then gotta go farm their gear and equipment. Right? We always played games just to play. They're just games. Exactly. And when you start to hear endgame only from streamers. Exactly. it's like once you start hearing that being spouted around like that, it's a lot more pega when you think about it, because they're trying to like artificially extend your playtime by putting more chores and roadblocks in your place, rather than giving you an actual genuine fun and enjoyable experience there. And then when like the only interesting thing they have is locked behind it, and the roadblock is super high, the barrier to entry is so high, people are not going to play it and they're not going to care. There's a reason why things like let's say like Fortnite, for example, is popular with kids and stuff like that. Because here's the reality, right? If you wanted to play a game, right, and you wanted to like let's say get good at it, right? You can literally just download Fortnite and start playing the game. Same thing with Valorant, right? You can do that literally right now if you wanted to. Same thing you can do with Apex or whatever other game you're thinking of. You can literally just, your only barrier entry is you just downloading the game and starting to play the game. That's it, right? And that's the thing. That's why, like, those types of PvP, when you see those types of games, are always popping off. But, like, if you go look at, like, World of Warcraft, for example, right? It's still the biggest MMO in the West, right? Because I don't know about China anymore. Ever since they got rid of the was it NetEase, the NetEase Blizzard contract stuff for the Chinese World of Warcraft ended a couple years ago. I know some of the Chinese players moved and started using VPNs to play to play with other people on World of Warcraft, the people there. But like nobody's gonna like understand and care about like World of Warcraft PvP, for example. Because what's the problem with World of Warcraft PvP? Okay, you wanna go do World of Warcraft PvP? First you gotta get your character, level it all the way up to level cap. Now you gotta farm spend weeks, if not months, farming honors so you can get your honor gear. Right? And then you also have to make sure you get all your enchants and everything set in order. You need to find other people to play with so you can make your rated battleground team or your arena team. Right, people to play with for that. And you gotta make sure that everyone else is on the same page. You gotta organize because it's multiplayer PvP in that sense that you so that you can all play at the same time, right? There's all of that stuff in there. But like I can be like, yeah, I might just go download Fortnite and I can go play Fortnite right now if I wanted to. I could go play Valorant right now. I could go play Apex right now. I could go play what's the other one? Marvel Rivals right now and start playing. Right? I won't be good at it, but I can at least play the game immediately. There isn't a barrier to entry there. Right? I could do the same thing with Strenova or whatever other PvP game. With the PvP games, that's fine. Because the content is just you playing with other people. Right? That's the content there. And with those ones, because gearing and stuff doesn't matter, because it's just you play the stuff and it's skill based in the match. Right? You could just play with no barrier. But for like with MMOs and stuff like that, it's part of why they've slowly been dying in there. Because the reality is, it's hard to get in. The barrier to entry for them, a lot of them, is too high. And they haven't really started to try to give people other reasons and incentives to play outside of the things there, like outside of that type of content. Endgame can be great as a way to keep existing players in those types of games engaged. It can be, but often at times it ends up not working. It's part of why that genre, for example, is slowly dying too. Right? We've been seeing a slow death to that genre because again, like the barrier to entry is too high. If they really want to try something to work, they need to get in new players, but find a way to make it so like they can actually keep and retain those new players. Because the reality is, most of the time with these games, it's like, oh, they see it, they try it, and then they drop it after like a few days or a week. Because they realize I'm never going to be able to catch up, and everyone is like talking about I'm playing this specific thing in the game, but I can't play with them. And it's like the barrier to get to where they are is too steep. And it's just not worth my time to get caught up. And like that's just the problem as a whole with a lot of these. It's why you see stuff like Blizzard selling like character boosts to like level cap, and they've been doing it for like 10 plus years now. It's why they started doing that. Because like then they realized, oh wait, we can sell this to other people as well, and you have that whole situation there. And like I remember back when that was a thing, people were like really crazy and fighting over that. Fighting over like the fact that but like that people can be like, I'm gonna go spend like $60 and now my character is instantly level cap, and they skipped over all the other stuff in there, right? Versus like older players who just went in and leveled up from all the way from level 1 all the way to level cap during that expansion or whatever. Right? It's because the barrier to entry is super high. But what's more important really isn't the end game, but the actual core game itself.
For its meaningfully challenging endgame modes, to the point of Chinese universities hosting nationwide ARKNIGHTS tournaments with thousands of dollars in prize money.
Okay.
I've kept playing for all these years because ARKNIGHTS has such a rich endgame and high skill ceiling, but for a long time it didn't. When it first launched, the most interesting gameplay it had to offer was Chapter 4. It took them years to make integrated strategies a permanent game mode. But the difference is, ARKNIGHTS didn't offer anything else in terms of gameplay. There was nothing else to play the game for. With Endfield, Hypergriff seems to have regressed into doing the same thing by making it frustratingly shallow in its launch state, but doing so this time is a critical mistake. Those who are looking for strategic depth will not find it. It is pathetically easy, and it will remain that way for at least the first 6 months or so. Which means once those players have completed their bases, which really doesn't take that much time, they may not stick around for that long. But those who are looking for action will get plenty of it from daily and weekly gameplay, regardless of the difficulty. The ability to dodge not only gives those action-seeking players their daily dose of dopamine, but also significantly diminishes the need for healing. If their overall healing needs can be met with items you can craft directly from the backpack, and a 4-star like Snowshine can provide literally all my healing needs with room to spare anyway, what reason does the action-seeking player have to engage with the base at all? The outposts are optional. All they need at that point is some components to make gear. This combined with the lack
And it's not too hard to get the components set up to make gear.
of strategic depth in its launch state creates a serious risk of cultivating a majority of players who are exclusively invested.
Honestly, what they need to do is make more stuff to do with the base factory stuff. I do not care about like the combat shit, to be honest. What they need to do is make more interesting things to do after you upgraded your base and built up your post. Maybe make stuff where like you have more tower defense stuff to do instead, and like I can and then instead spend all my resources building batteries and towers to do stuff and stuff like that, or have like other missions where I need to like build stuff and like send them off. If they were to do that, I would have something else to do, because I honestly just don't really care too much about the actual combat. Right, but yeah, you kind of already get that from Tribe 9. I see. I haven't bothered touching the game. Right, I heard they at least fixed or at least not really fixed, but they kind of reworked and changed the gacha stuff. Because there's no actual true fixing of that, of any gacha system. It's more of they just make them less awful. At the end of the day.
Invested in the action gameplay. Now, this will be a controversial take, but I would not be making this video were I not willing to defend it. I think the best decision Endfield could possibly make after the beta is to remove the dodge entirely.
Honestly? You know what? Yeah, why not? Instead, encourage people to plan and position better.
Hypergriff's development decisions will be driven by what players want, and if the vast majority of players aren't
I don't see it as a bad thing to remove the dodge, honestly. Just make it so people are hyper focused on positioning instead.
engaging with the base, the game's evolution will reflect that. This is my #1 issue with the game. They are creating a precarious combination of action gameplay in the combat alongside the slower gameplay of the base. We already have an example of such a precarious combination in a gacha game failing to hold in Zenless Zone Zero's TV mode. It is an action game. It was advertised as an action game. Lo and behold, the action gamers didn't like the TV mode, and HOYOSHILLS decided to all but kill the TV mode entirely. The difference, though, is that Zenless Zone Zero was built from the ground up around its dodge and parry mechanics. It is fundamentally an action game. That is where its strengths lie, and that decision was an act of leaning further into those strengths.
Okay.
Endfield, on the other hand, has been built from the ground up around the base, yet it is taking clear steps towards action gameplay.
Yeah, like, I just want to do stuff with the base, man. Honestly, with these boss fights, let me build towers and stuff in them. It'd be a lot more interesting if I could build shit in the boss fights. Honestly, like, imagine if, like, in a boss fight like this one, right? I could, like, put up zip lines and stuff and, like, just zip line across to avoid things. And then, like, build towers to just shoot down. That'd be a lot more fun to deal with. Or, like, build other stuff in the way. Like, oh, the boss is gonna do, like, a big attack in front of me. I go and, like, build up, like, a wall or something. To, like, have it hit the wall instead. That'd be a lot more fun.
Obviously, they aren't going to kill off the base entirely. You might as well announce end of service at that point. But I am convinced Endfield...
Right, because, like, yeah, like, I just wanted to do the base stuff, the building stuff.
...is sleepwalking into doing something not all that far removed. If the game cultivates a player base...
Right, because, like, I didn't really like doing the freaking chore stuff to go build up the characters there. I needed to farm a bunch of these for some of the materials. At least they were generic and shared between everyone, but... I just really want to do the base stuff.
Seeking action, then as more and more regions are introduced, each one asking the player to build a new base from scratch.
Yeah, like every new area, they're gonna want you to build a new base and upgrade and build upon that one.
Those action-seeking players will complain, and being the majority of the player base, there is a serious danger of Hypergriff pivoting to action gameplay for that reason.
Yeah.
And we have already seen that Hypergriff is perfectly willing to let you sidestep most of the strategy in their strategy game, so long as you pay up. But for the same reason HOYOVERSE's attempts at strategy have been absolute dogshit, Hypergriff would not even hold a candle to developers with mature and polished action gameplay systems. Removing the dodge and doubling down on strategic gameplay solves this problem and...
Yep. Honestly, let me build as well in combat. Let me build as well. Especially because then I can take all the batteries I'm producing and more of the towers in.
To build on Enfield's strengths and create something truly phenomenal. It is by far the best decision they can make for the longevity of the game. Instead, they are trying to steer it in two different directions.
Let me craft in combat. let us like build stuff in combat. Yeah, they can get rid of the dodge. Give us other stuff instead. How about like we can like build like mini barriers and shields and stuff instead? Right? On top of the healing items, and let us just use those.
Simultaneously.
It's part of third-person combat game. It was barely even used. Like, here's the thing. Nobody, like, really used it when they were playing. You could dodge, but there was already no point. So, like, there's no real need to it if you're not gonna use it. Most of the things you couldn't really dodge well anyways. You had to, like, walk out. Or run out of the way. Like, a run button, fine, but, like, an actual dodge... It's kind of unnecessary. Yeah, just make it a dash. Just remove the iframe from it, because the iframe was already super short. Just make it a dash. That'd be a lot more interesting as well for, like, the platforming stuff. And, like, the thing is, the building stuff goes well with the platforming. Because, like, if you can build more platforms, and they let it so you can build platforms, or, like, you can craft bombs as well to destroy stuff with it. Right? Let's say, like, you build something up, and then you have, like, a bomb to destroy it if you need to move through it. Right? You made a barricade and stuff like that. Or, like, you have the zipline towers and stuff. They could do some interesting things with that. Because, like, that was the interesting part of the game. Not the other stuff in there. Also, like, it would lean in more into being strategic. Because it's like, okay, where do I want to, like, build my stuff so that, like, I can, like, fight the thing better. Or move out of the way or whatever, right? Because, like, they even had stuff like a healing tower you could build, where if you stood near the healing tower, it would heal you. But you had different other ones, like, different, like, damaging towers that would do different things in crowd control and stuff.
One towards that vision they so clearly had a year ago, and one towards appealing to a wider, more general audience.
And the general audience is not gonna mesh with the freaking, with the base building stuff, man. That's too much for them.
Though we all know what general audience really means. Let's not pretend otherwise. It means the HOYOVERSE audience.
Yep.
Obviously, there's nothing wrong with playing HOYOVERSE games. This does not mean every single HOYOVERSE fan ever. The problem is with those who do not see each game as having a unique identity appealing to different kinds of players, but rather they see 3D anime RPG gacha game as a genre in itself. And yes,
Yep.
that does include you, Wuthering Waves fans. HOYOVERSE and Kuro
Yep.
games both have their roots in action gameplay,
And they're literally just doing the same crap.
while Hypergriff's roots are in strategy. And yet
Yep.
there are still those who make the argument that trying to be like Genshin or like Wuthering Waves or whatever is a good thing because they're
Yeah, it's not. I don't want that. Right? Like, if I actually wanted that, then I would be playing them. But I don't play them. So obviously I don't want them.
the
Right?
most popular gacha, and for some reason, popularity is the only thing that matters to these people. I'm going to make what may seem like a strange analogy at first, but just trust me on this. When Gangnam Style released in 2012, it was a
Yep.
global phenomenon.
I'll give
It
him the
became
like.
the first video to reach 1 billion views on YouTube, and just like that, the Korean pop industry was catapulted into the mainstream.
Yep.
More than a decade after that phenomenon, do we now have a thriving industry consisting solely of songs that are like Gangnam Style?
Nope. I don't think
Sounds a
so.
bit silly, doesn't it? Saya did not stumble upon some magic formula for success which can be repeated forever with the right balance of ingredients, and Sai has explicitly said this himself.
You know, I cannot call this success because this is called phenomena, and which means I don't do anything. People do it, right? So this was by people, not by me.
K-pop is the leviathan of an industry it is today, not because everybody copied Gangnam Style, but because people took advantage of the opportunities Gangnam Style opened up.
Yep.
Fast forward to 2020 and Genshin Impact becomes a global phenomenon, catapulting gacha games into the mainstream. MiHoYo put some forward-thinking people at the wheel, quickly built a brand identity, renaming themselves HOYOVERSE, and now, 5 years later, HOYOVERSE has found unfathomable sustained success. But again, this is not because they found some magic formula,
Nope.
but because they took advantage of the opportunities brought about by the phenomenon that was
Yep.
and is Genshin Impact. This is what people so often miss when they insist that every new gacha game needs to be like some other gacha game.
Yep. Because, like, at the end of the day, if you just make it the same thing, why don't I just play the original?
Of course, this is no concern for enlightened and experienced 3D anime RPG gacha game enthusiasts like ourselves. I'm sure our judicious and learned beta testers have provided invaluable feedback to the developers. Shall we peruse a few of them? Dash feels underwhelming. It should be more forgiving and have more iframes. It's not to
I didn't care. Honestly, I never cared about the iframes in there. Like, I just wanted a better dash.
my liking because of my action RPG experiences. You don't say! Game needs a proper dodge, and anyone who says otherwise is coping.
Nah, I need a dash. Give me a dash button. Right? It's like me playing a freaking, right? Like, it's like me playing like a Sonic game and asking, why can't I dodge? I have quick step, but I can't dodge. Right? It's like I go play a platforming and why can't I dodge? I have this quick step dash thing. Right? I have a boost button to move super fast, but I can't dodge. Right? It's like I gotta move out of the way instead. Almost as if the game is built around you moving around instead of just, you know, waiting to get something to be right in front of you so that you can just dodge it then.
A quick look around the gacha space makes this abundantly clear. Not being able to dodge cancel makes the overall combat loop feel unsatisfying because you're forced to take hits that could have been avoided. Yeah,
Yeah, I like that aspect there. It's like, hey, I used to play stuff like that, like MMOs like World of Warcraft as well. Imagine playing World of Warcraft and asking for a dodge button. When did, like, World of Warcraft and stuff didn't have a dodge button. Didn't need one either. How'd you dodge stuff in World of Warcraft? You just don't stand in the way of the attack. You walked away. You don't stand in the fire. As well, you don't stand in the fire. You get out of the fire. And then you don't get hurt.
dodging definitely needs rework, like larger iframes for casuals and consecutive dodges, and dodges not breaking your
Just give it a dash.
basic attack combo. And more dodging distance, and making dodges more rewarding, and make SP boss 4 instead of 3. It would make combat faster. Please make normal attacks more powerful, and also make each hit give SP, and also stagger, and also please give SP whenever I dodge. Also please make dodges use less stamina. Also stuff.
I do think they should make a bigger SP gauge, but not for but mostly so you can stockpile your SP for more. not you starting with a bigger SP gauge, but like just have it so you have 4 bars so that in combat instead you have even more choice to like strategize on when to use your skills, because then you can like save it up for longer rather than just spamming mindlessly. Because like I like that it wasn't just a mindless spam fest, but I wish I could store some skills for more, like, and delay them a bit more and later, right? More SP would mean you could probably nuke the boss. No, it wouldn't. Because of how this stuff works, you wouldn't really be able to nuke it. It's more of you could then like position yourself a little bit better and like counter specific mechanics a bit more easily. Because the way this stuff worked, right, was if to trigger the reactions, you had to apply, if you're doing a physical reaction, basically your attacks can either knock things up, lift things up, knock them down, and knock them down, right? Or you can stun them. Like you had like the stun thing. But in order to do that, you would have to combo 2 abilities that would trigger one of those effects. So if you use the physical attack that had a knock-up effect, you won't knock up the target unless you hit them again with another skill that triggers knock-up. The second one is what will trigger the actual effect. And that's how physical reactions work. With the other ones, for example, if you wanted to, like, let's say freeze the target, you had to apply any other element with a skill first, any element that isn't ice, and then you hit them with ice. And then you could trigger that. But you could only trigger that when you use the skill. Yeah, basically, you were locked into when you had your skill points. Only skills could trigger the reactions. But it's only the second one that triggers the reaction. Right? The other thing is, though, there's another mechanic. Enemies can also do these things to you, and they can also cast skills on you. But how do you stop enemies from using their skills and abilities? You use your own skill and abilities and time it roughly within a similar time frame of when they're using their skills and abilities. If you do that, you will counter their attack there. But you couldn't just spam it mindlessly. So like you are encouraged in a way to wait to use your abilities like that. Right? Same time when you're comboing the skills with the debuffs in there to trigger the reactions, there's a time frame on where the thing will wear off. So like you're encouraged to like stall out and like time when you do things accordingly. Of course, there are ways you can generate more SP with how you build stuff and use a specific character he mentioned earlier, right? But like the whole thing there was like you had to like time everything to take advantage of that. Especially when like you know how they were complaining about dodges having like very shit iframes and not going very far? It's because like you're the way you're supposed to counter those attacks is not by dodging them. It's by not even being in the field of the attack in the first place, or by using the skills to counter them. Like where you're using your skills strategically to counter them. And it's not like you had like a decent window too, but you need to make sure you actually have the skill available. It's kind of like if you ever played, let's say, World of Warcraft, for example, right? Let's say like you're in PvP and someone, let's say there's like a mage using Pyroblast on you. It's like a very big, very powerful big nuke of a spell. But then like before they fire it off, you can see their spellcasting bar, and instead you hit them with an interrupt ability. Let's say you use let's say you use wind shear on like a shaman, and you hit them with wind shear and you interrupted them. And what it ends up doing is it blocks them from using like fire spells for a bit because you interrupted them. It's kind of like that, where like every single skill ability, like all the skills on the characters in Endfield, they also function as an interrupt, and you could time it when they have the skill casting bar, or rather circle. As long as you use the skill to hit them, right? And you have to keep in mind as well the position of the characters, your party members, when you press the button to use their skill, because you want them to actually hit the target. But you also have to be careful you don't trigger the reaction you don't want. So you had to be strategic on that. right? That part was actually a lot more interesting. But I think adding a fourth skill bar would help with that. Don't like increase the regen like you get. Just give like a fourth skill bar so you can stockpile one more skill charge. When like and save it. Cause then they can make enemies encounters more reactionary to that. Rather than just mindless spam. Yeah, so like on the big attacks, they will have a cast time. The smaller basic attacks don't have a cast time, but like their big ones do have a cast time. And it's pretty obvious when they have one. So you know that you can like do something. Right? Instead of just you mindlessly using your abilities when you have the skill points, what you should be doing is saving them for when they have they're gonna cast the big attack if you have the skill points. It's kind of why I would rather have like 4 skill bars instead. I think increasing it to 4 but like leaving the other rules the same would be fine. It's just that, you know, I don't really care about the dodge parrying stuff. Honestly, parrying in like a game that's gonna be like run online anyways, and and you're gonna have to deal with like things like server and server lag, or your possible like ISP rerouting you and stuff, your connection, and who knows how that gets handled, right? And being lucky with that, the actual latency is just not gonna do any favors for parrying. But like, yeah, iframe rolls, like, I don't really care for that one. Blocking could be interesting as a mechanic there if you like, if they make it so you can put something up. But like, it's not really needed. I don't think so. I don't think it's needed. I would rather it be more like strategic, anyways. It doesn't need to be like fast-paced, mindless spam.
Far so good, but it feels like some essential features are missing, like iframe rolls and parrying and deflecting. Hey, remember what?
Right, and like this is why, like examples like this is why, like you shouldn't always listen, to your listen to what people are saying. Not always listening isn't always going to be the solution. But yeah, like a shield which gives you interruption resistance, but you have to time it. Nah. Not like that, no. I'm thinking like, no, you put an actual shield on the ground, and you stand behind the shield, right? But then you, like, occasionally, sometimes there'll be an attack that can get around it, so you have to move out of the way instead. I'd rather the game focus more around, like, positioning, like, being, like, strategic with your positioning and your use of your tools, rather than just you using everything off of cooldown and just occasionally doing an iframe dodge or whatever. I would rather it be like actually strategic in that sense. Especially when like you have to be strategic when you're like in the world out in the world or doing the tower defense stuff on when you place your towers and when and where and how you power them, because enemies can just come up to your towers, destroy your towers and your power sources. Right? Like, the fact that they can also do that, too. And you have to be mindful of that. Like, I do like that aspect, and I would rather them just focus on that instead. Because that was, like, the only reason why I was, like, really interested in playing the thing in the first place. It wasn't for this shit. I don't care about this shit in here. There are so many other better games I could be playing if this is what I wanted. Why the fuck would I have to play this one for it? Right? Especially for a single-player game. And, like, fuck, if I really want this freaking, stuff in there, like, I could go play, like, if I wanted something even crazier and faster paced, I could go play one of the 3D East games. For example. Yeah. It's gonna be elite and bosses straight up destroying your towers and gadgets that you've built. Exactly! And then how do you get more? You deal with the factory gameplay to build more. And you go build around them. There's a reason why as well, like, things like Pal World was, like, super addicting for people when the thing came out, right? And then the people like the raids and stuff in there, too, right? Because it's like, oh, you have, like, you summon this big, crazy boss to fight, right? And then you have to use your entire army and stuff like that. People would, like, be coming up with all these strategies on how to set up their pals to counter the bosses that they summon. They would do, like, crazy breeding stuff or whatever, right? They would build specific other things around it. Yeah, right? You can build little walls and stuff like that while you like hide behind them and like shoot at them or whatever, and then run around so you don't just die because like they'll do big damage to you. You had things like that in there, which was a lot more interesting than just, you know, doing an iframe dodge roll to get out of the way of something at the last possible second. Right? Like, people were actually doing things that were a bit more strategic in there. And that was the fun part. Right? Like, that was the fun and interesting part.
What I said about players wanting more and more action if a dodge exists?
Make SP boss 4 instead of 3 and make it recharge faster.
Right now, there's no incentive to swap to another character during combat. It cancels the animation and doesn't change the position. I hope they make it more like Wuthering Waves. Oh,
Ooh, no thanks.
here we go, boys. Buckle up.
Yep.
Combat's already way better than with the technical test. Being too different will scare new players away. They changed it from the technical test for a reason. But
The combat feels like classic MMORPG, also due to the fact that you have more than one person on the field, which I personally like about it. What I agree is that the mentioned problems right now is canceling not feeling good. Okay? The teleportation, you should teleport to the position instead, as always being the target of enemies anyway. Right now is kind of unique compared to the other well-known modern gotchas. Being too different, however, will scare away new players. That's fine. There's a reason why they changed the old combat into the technical test. Oh boy. Ugh.
But this is my view as someone who's played lots of recent gacha games like Genshin Impact, Zenless Zone Zero, and Wuthering Waves. But
Yeah.
never the original ARKNIGHTS. By the way, there is Girls Frontline 2 for a more top-down strategic approach, which is exactly why I'm not playing it.
Damn.
Here are some exploration options in the competitors I've played. Genshin Impact. The game should tell me which weapon to put on my character, like in Zenless Zone Zero. Also, the game should tell me which gear to put on my character, like in Zenless Zone Zero.
Oh boy.
Overworld exploration feels kind of slow. A good example of how to make it better would be Wuthering Waves, right?
Wuthering Waves exploration. Yeah, let me just run in a straight line from one point of interest to the next. Let's completely throw any semblance of world and level design out the window. Just run from point A to point B. Just glide from point A to point B. Nothing else is in your way. You just go there in a straight line. Nothing interesting there. Yeah, no thanks. I'm good with that one. I don't need that in there.
Right now, this feels like a certain game where the combat is you running around and combining different skills to get the reaction. Damn, that's crazy. I wonder why. Jump feels too short and floaty. It would be great to increase the height or allow a double jump. They would have to redo all the geometry. What do you mean? This is especially important because of improvements to exploration the competition has been making.
Yeah, I don't really care about a wall jump. Honestly, I'm glad they don't have a wall jump. I'm glad we don't have wall jump and climbing. Because honestly, with how a lot of these games have handled things, it just makes it more boring. There's like nothing interesting there. Yeah, no wall climbing. Don't need it. Don't need wall jumping either. No thanks. If you're actually gonna build the game around it, then go ahead. And if you're gonna like build the game around it and make it interesting, otherwise don't bother at all. Right? It's like, imagine if these guys played Infinity Nikki and they get like surprise Pikachu face. When like, yeah, you move a lot slower in there, but like, I don't have a problem with that. They're probably gonna complain on the dash as well that you have in there. Cause like, yeah, there's like a no iframe dash in Infinity Nikki as well to move out of the way of things. But it has a long cooldown, so you can't just spam it. There's no wall climbing, there's no wall jumping at all in Infinity Nikki either. It's a pure platforming game. They thought it wasn't needed for that. And like, unless you're gonna design things around it, there's no point in putting it in there anyways. Right. I was fine with how they designed stuff in the world in Endfield, to be honest. Not having those things was fine. And like, besides, it's like, if I already got to a specific spot, I could always just build a zipline tower there. So that if I could quickly get back to where it was later on. Instead. If I really didn't want to do any of the climbing around things again. They gave me other options there. I don't need some crazy wall jump or double jump. Double jump as well, like, again, like, to make a double jump really feel useful, you kind of have to build things around it. Some of the controls, though, like, for the jumping, the physics, it's a bit weirdly slippery there. So, like, I can understand that part, but I don't need to put a double jump. It's not necessary. But yeah, like, the wall jump, wall running stuff, unneeded.
You please fuck off! It would be great if they considered adding platforming abilities like a double jump and wall climb.
Yeah, I don't need wall. Like, the thing is, like, I played through all of it. Where the fuck would you even use wall climbing? Like, I have no idea where the fuck people would want to use wall climbing. The map was not built for it. There's nothing to use it on. The double jump is like, there's nothing really that crazy you need to reach that you need to have another jump height as well. So it's like, I find it like unnecessary.
Climbing and swimming and the grappling.
Swimming, like, it's not like they put anything in the water, man. They don't even get a proper grappling hook in the games they're thinking of. The only one that actually has it, in these gotchas, is Toph, and even then, right? Unless there's a hidden chest in the open world. It is an open world, though. It's just not the way they think it is. No, like, actually, the way Enfield's map work, it actually is an open world. It's just that the way they have, like, the map shown hides the fact that it is. And, like, if you actually have, like, a strong enough machine, the entire map is loaded. With the sub-areas. All of it is loaded. If you have a strong enough machine when playing the game. You won't have any loading. You can even build zip lines across maps. So, like, I can be, like, let's say, let me open up a VOD from it. Because I actually have done that when I played the beta at some parts. Let me find Endfield. You can actually build zip lines across. Like, towers consume a ton of power. Like, I can, like, take a zip line from this part of the map and drag it all the way to the end and bring it to another map entirely. You're actually required to do that to run power lines. But, like, they basically have each of the actual maps, just like the smaller maps. Like, all the smaller maps is just actually one big map. It's just heavily focused and zoomed in on a specific area. But it's all one big map. It's just that, yeah, there's a lot more invisible walls all over the place. And I can, like, yeah, you have to actually, like, drag power lines across in weird ways. Because, like, yeah, this part over here, there's a zip line here that takes to the power plant, which was at the top of the Valley 4 map. But from there, there's, like, a specific area there, like, you can go down underground, and it takes to the other one where the other boss was. So it's just more or less divided into zones, yes. It is. Like, it is all one big map. It's just that I think the people who think it isn't, they just don't have a strong enough PC. Or like, they didn't put the game on an SSD, so it had to load between loading specific areas of the map. Because the reality is, it's not just exclusive to Endfield, but literally all of these these open world games. Even if we go back to World of Warcraft 20 plus years ago, right, 21 years ago, if you had a strong enough machine for vanilla WoW, for example, you wouldn't have any loading at all unless you either entered an instance dungeon or raid, or you traveled to a different continent. Otherwise, you would have zero loading screen going from, let's say, Orgrimmar in Durotar, the Durotar zone, all the way down to like the Encourage subzone. You would have zero loading screens going on your mount or a flight path all the way down there. What it would just do is unload areas that you're not seeing, that were further away, to save on resources. That's how, like, a lot of these games would work. It's not anything super crazy or new. But yeah, like, Enfield would do the same. Right? So you would see a loading screen if your computer was too slow. Like, that's the only times you would see loading screens. But with me, I didn't, like, see any loading screen at all with that. I only saw loading screens when I entered the other continent, or when I went to an instance area. Those are the only times I saw a loading screen, when I played the game. Because, like, it is just one big massive map. I don't remember which VOD it was. I would have to look through, but there was like a specific VOD where I was literally like running power lines across maps because like it is required. If you want to get like power in the sub like in the mine sub area at the bottom part of like Valley 4, you had to like take a power line from the first area and route it all the way into there. It's the same thing from like the science park into the area after that. You have to like route stuff from the previous area. There was no sub base in those zones, so you couldn't generate power there. You had to like build your own stuff to get around there.
Hook, it's one of the fun aspects of open world games.
It's not, no. Like, this stuff is not the fun aspect. It's level design stuff, man. You can get away with a lot less if you actually build stuff around it appropriately. All this stuff isn't necessary unless you build around it. No. Here's the thing with the zipline. You have to build both ends of the zipline for it to work. Meaning, if you want to build a zipline, you have to already get to the destination first. The zipline doesn't go anywhere if you put up a tower. You have to build 2 or more towers and link them together. Meaning, you had to already get to your destination at least once. If you want to use the zipline. And you had to make sure you routed power to the zipline too. Because the zipline consumes power. Right? The zipline is just great as like if you need to go back to an area, or you're like moving back and forth between things constantly, you could just put ziplines anywhere across. But yeah, hi Necomaster Gaming. Welcome, welcome. But yeah, like that's how it is. Yeah, you'll have fun with that one. It's not as elaborate or crazy as Minecraft Redstone, but like yeah, you would just set up the towers, you would hook them up, and then you could put ziplines across the place. Eventually, there's like an upgraded zipline you can get as well, where you can make it so you can automatically go to the next zipline point. When you go through one and just pass to the next one, so you can like make your crazy zipline trains across the maps. Right, like if you want to like go back and forth between areas, which I used to get like specific resources or whatever. I would like place ziplines all over the map. To like points of interest.
An open world game for crying out loud! All the big open world gacha games let you carry over the pity. Terran races and
oh wait, wait, which one? I accidentally clicked off of the thingy. Oh boy.
Be wuthering away. Right now, this feels like a certain game where the combat bode well for most of the mainstream gacha community.
You don't have the, if you don't have 120 pulls to spend, it feels terrible. Oh boy, these guys don't understand the economics behind the resources there. I mean, imagine if you told them getting 120 pulls at Endfield was the same as getting 42 pulls in the gacha game they're thinking of. Imagine if you blew their mind by, like, going over the economics of the game. Like, of, like, the in-game resources. They probably wouldn't understand. Nice. Only 12 hours to go. Don't worry. Later on, I have more gameplay to upload. A lot more. Right? Here's the other thing, too. It's not just 120 versus 160. It's how much does the 120 cost? And how much does the 160 cost? Yeah, that was day one. Day 1 of 3. Yeah, understandable. That was day 1 of 3. There's 2 more. There's 2 more parts. Part 2 is the longest at 13.5 hours. Part 3 is 11 hours again. But yeah. We only had 3 days to, like, well, technically had 4 days. With the access to the closed beta last year.
Well, they can bloody well fuck off then! People need to learn how to skip banners. This is stupid advice. Yep. Just look at this example from You just wanted to be more like Hoyoverse. And they're the most popular gacha, period.
Yeah, the peg is here.
Carrying over the guarantee in a game competing with I only build up PT if there is a character I really want dupes for. The concept of dupes is already questionable. Looking at
Yep.
Genshin
Oh boy. There's a 4-star character this thing. Oh boy, night and day difference. At the end, multiple factors decide if it's worth or not for Enfield. I don't know how worth getting dupes are, especially support units. Okay. The freaking brain rot with these people.
Very few people that play Arknights, but dozens that play Hoyo and Kuro game. This is a lie. You know people who play one Kuro game. It is Wuthering Waves.
Yeah, they specifically Wuthering Waves. They're not gonna talk about freaking PGR, man.
Specifically, don't fucking lie to me! It's about what your competition does in business. Oh my god, you people are insufferable. I keep pulling after I get the character to build pity, but that's now a mistake in this game. You have a gambling addiction! Building—
Yep. Like, these people, man. Right? It's like with me, it's like, oh, I'm not gonna, I got what I wanted, I stopped pulling. Okay, move on, next thing. I'm not fucking pulling like crazy, man. I'd rather even not pull in the first place in a lot of the cases in some of these games.
Pity is not a thing! In my ideal gacha system, there is no 50-50 system at all. Just a banner with X pulls to get it guaranteed, and a higher chance to get it at X pulls. This is literally the Endfield!
Yeah, that is literally what they have here in Endfield. Yeah, I wonder what this is. I wonder what this is, man. This is literally what they have. This guy is like dumb, like, and like this guy in his video is like literally pointing it out.
System, you idiot! Mark my words, if this system goes live with no changes, the player base from competitors of this game will absolutely
Yeah, no.
not play long term.
What competitors, man? What other gacha game is gonna give me the factory building experience there? The strategy factory thing in there. The closest thing they'll have to that is like NTE's shops, where I'm running coffee shops. That is literally the closest thing they'll ever have to that, probably. And then even then, that's still an extreme stretch, man. Like me running my corporate empire in NTE, that is like the closest thing they'll ever have in the gacha space to what Enfield is. And they're not the same thing, man. They're very far from each other. Yeah, I played those three, yeah. Like, the reality is people who want to play the factory stuff in there, right? They're not gonna care about the other shit.
Bear in mind, by
just
the way,
react.
this is just from the Discord server. There will be far more of this in the private feedback surveys.
Oh boy,
I
yeah.
want to highlight one more post, however, in which two testers state similar concerns to mine and are met with a rather depressing response. The first tester says, "Currently there are a lot of action elements, but the battles don't feel exciting.
Yeah.
I think the battle system in the technical test might be more enjoyable. When it comes to action, other companies' games are more refined, and the current system just feels like an inferior version of them, which is just annoying."
Yep.
The second agrees. There are some opinions that it's plain compared to other games, but Enfield is differentiated from others and is interesting in its own way. So
Yeah,
I
I
don't want
agree.
it to be swayed by those opinions and make it feel too action-oriented. If the dodge window is too lenient, it'll just become a dodging action game.
Yep.
While the third tester, eloquently summing up the vast majority of the feedback, says, "I agree with increasing the action element. The reason is simple, it will attract a wider range of players."
Yeah.
This, essentially, is the mindset of people who keep asking for the game to be something it's not. They have
Yep.
no concept of carving out a niche in the market, or games having unique identities, or the developers having their own vision. It's all just monthly revenue PvP.
Yeah.
It is boring, it is exhausting, and I lament the apparent reality that Hypergriff seems to be listening to them.
Oh no. I haven't looked at that stuff, but oh no. Yeah, honestly, get rid of the dodge and give us a dash button, man. Like, I don't really care about a dodge. Give me a big dash button.
As it stands, the base is the one and only thing meaningfully differentiating Endfield from other gacha games.
Yep.
Thankfully, the majority of people anticipating the game's release do seem to understand how important the base is for that reason. But
Yep.
while it does have tons of room to grow and become even better, I have become convinced it will not. The most optimistic outcome I can believe in is that new regions will have a new gimmick, like Jinlong's fluids and pipes.
Yeah.
We'll build a new base with it over the course of maybe a few days at most.
Yeah, like a few days, a week or two, and then you stop playing for like a year, and then you do the same thing again. And that's gonna be the unfortunate reality if things go down that road.
The vast majority of players will be satisfied, and that's where it will end.
Yep.
Gacha games are not conventional games. Fundamentally, the characters are the product and the game is simply a vessel through which the product is marketed. But reducing all gacha games to this fundamental is boring. They're fun! There's so much potential in the live service model for outstanding single-player games to see years of consistent updates and improvements, to foster thriving communities that conventional games often don't have the lifespan for. Instead, a subset of the communities that already exist are preventing that potential from being realized by consistently pushing new endeavors with unique visions into the same box until they all become homogenized imitations of the same thing.
Yeah, like, I don't want that.
Hypergriff needs to decide if they are content with being that imitation. Because a game for everyone is a game for no one.
Exactly.
There was a moment while playing through the main story which I think will stick with me for many years. I was thinking about some moments from the alpha, like Fial's desperate attempts to jump onto this ledge because I was standing on it and admiring certain details on the blighted Gigaspawns.
Okay,
My boy was caked up, holy. I happened to be in the Origin Loadspring region at the time, and I noticed why the music for...
But yeah, like, all these maps are connected. There's a specific spot here, you can route power to get down there. You can even make a zipline from here to over here. The same thing from over here. And then from in here to there. This is also this part over here. There's a door to get into here. And then from here, you have to go through all the way around here. There's a cave system. And you end up at the bottom here. And again, you go through all of this stuff. There's another cave system and stuff. And it exits out through a hole up on this part of the map over here. And then after you clear all that stuff here, there's a zip line from here that goes all the way over here. Same thing, over here, there's like a little cave. Not a little cave. There's like a little like valley thing here that you walk through to get from here to here. There's no loading between all of it. This is all on one big map. But like, it's just shown this way for some reason. Once you get to the edge of this map, you will just immediately be here without loading. Like, it's all just connected that way.
This place in particular...
Your Discord's not working? I think it's gonna automatically block your thing, though. If you try to send it here, it's gonna automatically get blocked by Twitch.
Felt so eerie. Remember the menu theme I was glazing earlier? Now compare that motif to the music from this part of the map.
Ah, yeah.
It invokes a feeling of loss, a feeling of knowing something will never be the same again. And suddenly, I had to stop what I was doing because I was hit with an overwhelming feeling of nostalgia for the alpha.
Damn. I never played the alpha, so I don't know.
It's really satisfying, actually. I'm a big fan of it. There's so much potential in what this combat can be.
Wait, they had that thing in there? I never looked at the alpha, so I didn't know. You had like those skill shot type things in there. God damn.
It invokes a feeling of loss, a feeling of knowing something will never be the same again. And suddenly, I had to stop what I was doing because I was hit with an overwhelming feeling of nostalgia for the alpha.
Right? You had like this stuff going on in here. So you had like actual targeted zone abilities and stuff, and it wasn't just as just a mindless plonk.
You having fun, Topo?
It's really satisfying, actually. I'm a big fan of it. There's so much potential in what this combat can be.
Yep. Yeah, that's a lot more interesting than what we even had in the beta there.
Do you have any other comments on the overall storyline? Okay. I can write an essay for this. I want the story to have a spine and let writers take risks. I'll be disappointed if it's dumbed down and basic.
Yep.
Wait, no.
Angelina! Angie, that's not how you abuse gravity.
Angie, no. I'm sorry. I really hope they commit to what they've got here. I think it's sick. commit to the vision, commit to no dodge and shit. Obviously, like, it needs refining and stuff, but...
You do understand not many people will agree with you.
Yeah, I know. As long as they're actually playing the alpha and understand what the vision is and what it's asking of them, it's totally fine. If they disagree, like, all I can reasonably ask of someone is to think for themselves, right?
I can't fucking wait for this game.
You want a story where you could see the ending and like every zone builds up in the story? Yeah, that'd be a lot nicer. Like if they actually just make a full thing, they end it and then they make a new one that continues and builds up on that one. That would be a lot nicer to do and see in these types of games. But like, so far the only gacha that's actually at least tried to do something, ironically, is Top with the story. Where like they at least finish the arc, and then they make a completely new one after. They'll have stuff that links them between, but like, you at least get your conclusion to everything. And these things end, at least to some extent, and then you get a new one afterwards. With the other ones, it just feels like they're just gonna keep perpetuating the same Pepega thing.
Full release, man. This is a technical.
Yeah, you figured that out from playing HSR in Tribe 9? I see.
Alpha. It's like a really bare bones version.
No, wait, not HSR. What? HBR? What? What's HBR? I almost thought that was...
of this game, and it's already like, I've just been unable to put it down. Just actually insane.
Yep.
I'm so excited, dude. I can't wait.
Heavens Burn Red. Okay. Heaven Burns Red. Yeah, I never played that one.
It feels a little weird to talk about it this way because it was literally only a year ago, but I'm making this video in the first place because I need to express how it made me feel.
Yep.
I had so much optimism for what the game could be. But now that optimism is becoming silent lamentation.
Yep.
If Endfield continues on the path it's currently on, every gacha developer with an eye on this game will see the trend. Originality is overrated, and the path to success lies in imitation. The men in suits will take notice, and unique, interesting ideas with oceans of potential will not even see the light of sunrise. Endfield is a dying canary in a coal mine. That canary may not be dead yet, but I am not at all convinced Hypergriff is interested in saving it.
Yeah.
What could have been the harbinger of a golden age could instead doom itself to be the death knell of gacha games. I have given every possible piece of feedback I can give.
Yeah, I saw that a long time ago.
And so I have done all that I can to convince them to remain faithful to the vision they clearly had. For now, I can only hope the decisions which need to be made will be made by those who are just as enchanted with that vision as I am. And I won't be left wondering what could have been.
Yeah. Very well made video there with that one. Yeah, special game. They love the OG ones. This thing. We already read that stuff. But yeah. It's a gloomy end, but yeah, it's like we have the freaking thing there. Where yes, the freaking brain rot of the Genshin and Wuwa people are literally going to end up ruining the game. And not in a good way, like they're just ruining it, like it is not a good thing. It's just that their freaking mindsets and everything and trying to infect this one. The reality is the game is not going to appeal to them, man. You actually give them strategic shit. You give them the freaking base building stuff, they're not gonna fucking care. I mean, it's a gloomy end, but I do agree what this guy has to say. So I'm going to have to, I thumb up his video. I do agree. And then they're gonna go back to playing their garbage, exactly. It's like, the thing is, like, what I liked about it was I wasn't fucking playing the garbage I didn't want. Right? I don't want it to be like that shit. But man, now that I saw like also the glimpse of the freaking alpha gameplay as well, he showed a little bit of that in there because I never looked at it. Man, they freaking dumbed it down and made it worse for them, and then they're gonna make it even worse because of them. But yeah, I do agree with this guy's takes, man. Experience Endfield through YouTube videos. You would prefer the reclination algorithm, but 3D. Okay. But yeah, I'll eventually. I do still want to eventually cook my Endfield video, but I feel like that's an interesting angle to go about with it with as well. And I could probably put I could probably split into 2 videos or something whenever I do find the time to write a script for that. Because then I could be like, yes, Hoyo and Kuro community is ruining it. And then we could go over the changes there too. Like, it would be clickbait farm, but like, also not really. Oh fuck, I just realized they also deleted the freaking channels to look at the beta feedback. Never mind, it's gonna be harder to dig that up, but I guess I can't do that anymore because it's not preserved. I just looked on the Discord server, those channels are gone now. But, yeah. I guess I'll just point to this guy's video to, like, where he talks about that thing, but, like, freaking the Hoyo and Genshin and as well as the Wuwa community are literally going to ruin it. I can put that at the end of there. Because they're gonna try to cater to the dumbasses there. But yeah, after watching more, you absolutely sold. Just stay in your, just one more lane, bro. You used, it's more fitting the entire point of the video. Yeah, it's funny, like, they forgot the entirety of China existed. But yeah, this video is crazy. It really, shows a thing there. Potential of gacha games, man. A game for everyone is a game for no one. I once said that, on, one gacha game CC's comment section, and I got attacked, saying that I shouldn't think this way. But seeing that Discord montage, now it seems I was proven right. Now people who want to play the game, who want to play that game, want other games to be a fucking carbon copy of theirs. And before anyone preemptively concludes, this game was not Genshin Impact. Exactly. Exactly. A lot of people hate ZZZ because it's not Genshin Impact. I don't think people understands why Olympus, Nikkei, Azure Lane, Blue Archive have a fan base. Yep. The quote might be one of the reasons why Helldivers 2 is so successful. Try looking up Arrowhead's slogan and you'll find the exact quote. Okay. But yeah. A game for everyone is ultimately just a game for no one, man. Try to appeal for everyone, but then nobody likes either. Yeah, and like, the reality is, trying to appeal to those freaking clowns there, man, is going to ultimately ruin the game. It's sad. And I didn't realize, like, it already could have been better, but they've, trying to appeal to them made it worse. It's just crazy, man. It is just crazy. Right, it is just absolutely crazy. But that's the world and reality we live in, man. Right, it is what it is. Right, I really don't want them to kill those people. But it's also gonna be a great shining example of why listening isn't always a good idea. Right, like, you shouldn't always listen to everyone. And the thing is, this is also why democracy doesn't really work, and why the reality is, the country you live in, your elections are not true democracy. They aren't. Because the majority of dumbasses are gonna ruin everything for everyone else. Yes, the United States is not a democracy. It never was. It never was. Why do you think you have things like the Electoral College? Why do you think that exists? Why do you think you have, like, the swing states and stuff that gets thrown around? because of how they end up having to split things up. Because the needs of one group of people in one area are not going to be the same as the fucking dumbasses grouped together in overpopulating the cities, right? But like, here's like, and like, it's not just there. It's in like literally any country where you can vote. They're all like representative like republics instead. They're like, none of them are fucking true democracies, because true democracy is just fucking stupid and will never work. Right? And especially when you have a group of dumbasses that all think the same thing. Like, a true democracy is just straight up stupid. When you have like large groups of people, once you get to a certain extent there, the dumbasses will ruin it for everyone. I'm not saying one thing is better than the other, but I will say that there's a reason why you don't have we don't have true democracy anywhere, because it doesn't work. Communism has its own issues, and it also will never work, and it has even more problems that can be even more discouraging to things in there. But that's its own other situation entirely. I'm not a political channel, and I don't want to get into like actual politics on that crap. But the reality is, yes, we don't have true democracy anywhere. They'll make you think we do, but we don't. And there's a good reason why we don't. And heck, like the founding fathers of the United States, for example, they understood this hundreds of years ago. Like, they understood it. Like, way back when they were, like, coming up with the stuff in there. That it was a bad idea to have a true democracy. Communism could need a QL patch. Now, the problem with communism is the people who are controlling the system at the top will basically get to exploit everyone else underneath. So instead, now you have a situation where like everyone is just equally miserable, except for the people in power and control. And then the people in power and control will do whatever they want, and whatever it takes and whatever they can to keep it. Because it keeps them isolated from everything else. So they can keep exploiting things that way. Right? It has its own other issues there too. Same time as well, imagine if you had everything truly being equal, right? What incentive would you have to, let's say, pursue an occupation in engineering, or in like being a doctor or a scientist or a researcher, when some random guy going around picking up scraps that doesn't really need much skill, right, is going to get paid the same? What incentive do you have to do that? Right, like, and then you have like some countries as well where they have that, where you have like doctors, for example, that are actually also doing part-time taxi driving gigs, because the reality is, because of the communist system, they make way more money, like significantly more, going around driving a taxi for tourists than they ever will as a doctor. So they're actually more incentivized to take on less patients and care for less people, and instead go around picking up tourists and driving them around instead, because they'll make more by being a cab driver and getting tips from them and stuff like that. Like, that's just the reality, on how bad it can get. And like, you can extend it all the way around to like other high skilled jobs or other like critical infrastructure stuff in there. And it's why some of those countries in there, they have all the issues they do. And it's only gonna get worse over time. It's not a good thing. The only way you can kind of get around it is if you force things to change, or you don't fully implement all of those systems in there, right? But you have your own other problems if you go deeper in there. It's just never going to work. It's the same thing with like a full true democracy will never work either, for different reasons, because then all the real problems that could affect a lot more people are just gonna get stomped out by a bunch of dumbasses, because there's a lot more dumbasses. But yeah, that's just how things are. They're talking about it was different. I guess you looked at the technical test videos, it got you feeling underwhelmed. You didn't know why. Now I know. Thanks, Sophia. I hope a new experience out of Endfield. Yeah, for people that love game and variety, I don't like playing the same game with the same combat mechanic. I need different thing. Yep, everything is in my Hoyo game. Got it. But yeah, this is like a really well done video there. As someone who is burnt out on Genshin, I want to play Endfield because of the base building and other features. It looks a hell of a lot more compelling than other gacha games. I don't want a Genshin clone. I want Endfield. Yeah, it looks incredible on their own and has its own merits. Why would anyone want it to be anything else is beyond me. Exactly. Right. I feel the same too. And like again, this is like a great video that proves why devs listening is a bad idea. Because they could just end up ruining things even more, just to appeal to people that won't actually play the game anyways. Yeah, you thought I was the only one who liked the alpha test combat more? Glad to see people's similar mindset here. Yeah, because like I saw some of the things there, like the little bit of gameplay you showed of the alpha thing, it did look a lot more interesting there. With like how you use the skills and abilities and stuff. Just let Endfield be themselves. Yeah. Your game will be better, bro, like shut up. Let Endfield cooking. Exactly. I don't know why this got recommended to me, but since I haven't watched anything about ARKNIGHTS Endfield, since I have zero interest in the game, but hopefully the problems get solved and you guys end up with a banger. Yeah. It gets benefits being prioritized as an action game. It was marketed as a roguelike with MCs that aren't on-field fighter. With every patch, it removes every part of that aspect. People say MC has actual involvement with merit, unlike Genshin, but then they just reduce any presence of it to the point where the current puzzle standards that the fishing tournament stuff. Okay, they're talking about the Endfield TV stuff. Honestly, like with not Endfield TV, the ZZZ TV stuff. I like the idea of the puzzle stuff. I just didn't like the fucking TVs being the way they did it. With like ZZZ, I wanted it to be a lot more like how like Tokyo Xanadu is. Right? Where you're going through these like large labyrinths and stuff like that. And there are a couple puzzles here and there to like progress through the labyrinth. And then the idea like your action combat and platforming between them. And stuff like that. That's what I wanted to like out of ZZZ. They didn't have any of that. The problem with the TVs, it was just very boring and stuff like that. But yeah, we're going to see a second beta after this, because there's no way they will release this game after this beta. Yeah, because like, who knows, man? Who knows? Right? But yeah, this video was just really good on his stance on the Endfield beta. They definitely like tone things down trying to appeal to the Papegas. And if they try to appeal more to them, it's just gonna ruin the game even further in the long run. Because, like, yeah, I don't play Genshin, I don't play WoW, I wonder why. Right, I wonder why, but I did like this one. I also wonder why. Maybe because I wanted what Endfield was gonna give me, and not Genshin, but with another random crap side thing. Yeah. Right? Yeah, like there's so much undercooked content in the first beta that they could explore more. It does feel like a missed opportunity, right? Well, we'll have to wait and see what goes on with there. And like, here's the thing: I got like a bunch of flack and hate for this when when we had the NTE beta last year. People were complaining about the NTE combat, and I'm like, yeah, I agree. But then someone made a video comparing side by side, and then put a reaction to it and talk about it, right? And they put Wuwa as well next to it. There's a reason why it fucking sucks. Because Wuwa's combat is dog shit too. It relies too heavily on their terrible camera, exaggerating everything, and the extra flashy animations in there to trick the dumbasses to think it's anything else. But it's literally the same thing on both sides. Right? Like, this video has a really bad like to dislike ratio. You can't see the dislikes because of YouTube. They got rid of that. But this thing is like heavily disliked. When I went and pointed that out, it's the same fucking thing. That's why it sucks. Because they don't, the KUROBOTS don't want to admit that their thing is shit. And they're just talking about the difficulty thing in there. This is not even my gameplay of the hologram in there. And it's not like I care enough to even bother to do a higher difficulty hologram. I'm never gonna actually play and do more of this shit in WUA anyways. Especially with all the shit I have to deal with to even be able to do that content in the first place. Yeah, no, Meteor's rating down after every single attack. Okay. It's like, I just do not care, man. And then they're like, fastest don't recommend. Okay. Some people can't afford the thingy, whatever, and then like, yeah. Thing was the combat sucks. While looking at the boss comparison, not the combat showcase. Uh-huh. Okay, they're going after that thing, but yeah. Like, this is just what's here. The video is cropped? Yeah, I don't know about that, man. Don't like bullet sponge enemy? Play realistic shooter. Spamming attacks is basically every combat game. Not really, no. I've played a bunch where you don't do that. Not just gacha. Go play Stardew Valley or Terraria. But Terraria has an attack button, something you hate. They think I hate a fucking attack button, imagine. Left click and see where you see enemy 2 R6. The fuck is up with these people, man? Right? Like, you really can't with these guys. Right? You can, like, read through this gold mine if you ever want to. It's on my channel, but yeah. It's not a rage bait. Yes, the combat sucks. It's the same fucking combat. They don't want to realize it's like, they don't want to look at it, the fact that, yes, at their core, it's the same fucking garbage. That's why it sucks. Yeah, they are dented, and this is why you shouldn't really be copying the stuff in there. Yeah, I didn't like the combat in there too. When I like had like I sent them like a written review of my stuff in there before. Yeah, and like the combat has its issues. There are different things I can do to try to fix it. But like I don't want to play Wuthering Waves or Genshin in there. I don't really want to be playing that. There's a reason why I don't play those games. And I don't want another copy of that. Right? But yeah, I just put Pega, man. Right, you can't really reason with them. If I would, like, when I eventually do my video or whatever, when I do get that one cooked, we'll see what happens there. But, like, I don't imagine they're gonna be happy with what I have to say. I really don't imagine they'll be happy. Because I know I'll piss more of them off.